Hello. Well, it's so fantastic to be here in Australia. I'm actually in relatively sunny Britain right now, in London, which is exciting because I don't actually live in London, but we are recording this from London in someone else's kitchen, which is quite exciting. Thank you so much. Everyone who's joining me from all across Australia. I'm Adele Parks and author of many, many novels, 22 novels. And this, upside down, this is my 22nd novel, One Last Secret. And this is the one I want to talk to you about today. I'm going to have a little moment where I can see that I've got comments, but I don't know how to look at my comments. Oh, found them. Hurrah. Oh, hello, Jessica. Jessica's my first person who said hello. And she said she absolutely loves my books, which is thank you, Jessica, because just as I'm taking a breath and settling in, that's really lovely to see. So I'm here today to talk to you about this one, One Last Secret, as I mentioned. It's a little bit different in some ways for many of you, I'm pretty certain, because it's a psychological thriller, which you're used to from me. That's what I write. Hi, Christine. And hi, Sharon. Hello. I'm really enjoying this. I will get to comments, by the way. This is meant to be a really two-way thing, and that's exciting for me. I really want to talk to you guys. So, yeah, if we say that maybe 10 minutes into this, you can start posting some questions, and I will answer as many of your questions as possible, and that would be great. But yes, I'm here to talk about One Last Secret. Now, why it's a little bit different as a psychological thriller. Just going to get it out there. Just going to say it, ladies and gents, if there's any gents joining me yet. Yeah, it's narrated by a sex worker, high-end escort. And I think some of you will be taking a deep breath right now, because that's not where we expect to see our sex workers in psychological thrillers. Normally, they are the bodies in the background, or they are, they might be, you know, like, I don't know, they might be grinding on a pole. That's rude, but it's your evening. It's a bit rude for me at 11 o'clock in the morning, but it's your evening, so you can deal with that. Or they might be found dead in an alleyway, and they're often nameless, and they are, you know, usually the momentum for the detective, often male, to then prove his worth and his genius. And I just looked at that over and over again in many, many psychological thrillers and thought, quite fabulous, quite interesting in their own right. You know, I'm not knocking any of the book. But what if I gave my sex worker the voice? What if Dora was the person whose opinion we cared about, whose humanity we cared about, whose experience and background that we wanted to know about? And so that's what I did. So Dora will narrate to you most of the way through the book. We do have other people's viewpoints. Normally I have multiple viewpoints in one of my novels, and I love that because it's actually relatively easy as a novelist. It takes you places because you can allow the reader to know things that an author might not know, that the characters might not know. And that is exciting for the reader. And if you only do one viewpoint, it's up to the reader to do a bit more work and work out what isn't she telling me. And of course, with a book entitled One Last Secret, clearly she's not telling you quite a bit, or somebody's not telling you quite a bit. So Dora is in this profession. She works with ruthless, ambitious, powerful, wealthy men, generally men, are her clients. And we meet her when she's realized that she needs to get out of this game. It's beyond dangerous, and a particularly awful incident has just happened to her. And I mentioned Dora has this huge humanity that we're going to learn about. She has a fabulous best friend, and the best friend is in love with her. And this isn't too much of a spoiler. It's really early on in the book. He proposes and says, okay, let's start a fresh life together, but you need to give up this sex work instantly. And at this point, we're all going, yay, go Dora. This is your open door. But she doesn't do that. She takes on one last job. And there, by going to south of France, which was awesome to research, I'll tell you all about that. But by going to south of France with this one last client, with this one last job, she thinks she's going to kind of put a little nest egg away for their married life, and that's all going to be great. But she actually encounters the one person who knows everything about her and can ruin her life. So there are secrets. Everybody she mixes with has secrets, but somebody has one last secret, and it's the most damaging one. That's all I can tell you. That's it. I've got loads more names. I'd like to say some more hellos to people because it's so fabulous that you're tuning in. I'd like to say hi to Wendy. Good evening. And to Jane Tara. She's already read One Last Secret. Yes, thank you. Alicia, Jessie, Kay, Christine, Sue, Sharon. There are so many of you joining here. I'm going to have to keep scrolling. Can I say oh dear, I've just pressed something. I'm really not techie. So I love talking to you. That's my favorite bit. Answering the comments is probably going to prove challenging. We'll see. And just to reiterate, because some of you are joining all the time, it would be amazing if in this comments box, and I'm sure you know this because you all adore Better Reading, because they are fabulous. They're just there as a community. So I'm sure you tune into lots of their live events. And so you will know this. In a few minutes, if you pop some questions in the comments, I will talk directly to those. So it's just a two-way event and we can really chat about it. In fact, I have a question, so I might just dive in because it is something I want to talk about. Sharon Hill has asked, how much research did you do of this book? She might be asking me that particularly if she's a particular fan of my writing, because I always say, I quite often shadow people who do the jobs of my heroines and my narrators. Can I just get that out there right now? I did not shadow any sex workers, but I did interview them. Surprisingly, I live in this county called Surrey, just sort of really close to London. It's very well-to-do, super posh, and nice. So it surprised me that I could put in my Google search bar sex workers in my area, the way you might put in, plumbers in my area, and hope for the best. Yeah, actually, sex workers, loads of them everywhere. And interestingly enough, they were very, very happy to talk to me about sex and be paid for that rather than actually, being paid to actually have sex. And what was interesting about talking to these women is, I think we all have kind of cliches about what we think sex workers are. I know for a fact that there are people in this industry that are forced into this industry, and that is horrific and obviously illegal, and we wish that didn't happen. But there are other people who choose it for a myriad of reasons, and they choose it to put food on their table. And because I sort of went out there and said, I'm a novelist and I'm researching this field, there was a process of self-selection of the kind of sex workers who would be excited to talk to me and want to put their viewpoints to me. And I had some really interesting conversations, and I found these women to be humorous, resourceful, resilient, and self-aware. And I hope I've honored that mindset and that humanity in my book. I hope I've done that through Dora. So yeah, that's the research. Somebody said, I love your book cover. Thank you. So do I. Actually, there is a little special one. There's one here on the screen, and that says there that there's a quote from Lucy Foley, which is terrific. Lucy is an incredible writer and another British writer, and that's super good of her. But can I say, in my Aussie edition, which is just phenomenal, and it looks exactly like this, except a little bit darker, because I know it's your winter right now. And the quote is from the absolutely fabulous and inimitable Sally Hepworth, which I think is possibly more exciting for you guys. I'm just saying, no offense, Lucy, because you are super exciting and I love you loads. But I was really proud to have the support of such a phenomenal Aussie writer, Australian writer. And I've never met Sally in real life, but we consider each other great friends. So that's great. So another question here, one from Louise Gunn. Hi, Adele. Love to hear your short version of this book, One Last Secret. My favorite books are psychological thrillers. Question: what made you decide to write psychological thrillers? Well, it's a really good question, Louise, because it's not where I started. I actually started in romantic comedy. I mean, literally two ends of that scale, you know. Romantic comedy, wake up every day and think the world is surrounded by butterflies and tweeting birds and that I'm a princess from Disney. Or psychological thrillers where my Google search bar says things like, you know, how do you get illegal weapons and which drugs are good to give someone memory loss for 10 hours. So yeah, kind of really different. So for the beginning, I would say 7 years of my career, I wrote romantic comedies and romantic, you know, boy meet girl stories. And then I just started changing them. The themes that were just finding the way into those romantic comedies became themes about infidelity or infertility or divorce and abandonment. And they just took on a sort of more serious edge. I don't know, maybe I just grew older and had a different viewpoint. Anyway, for whatever reason, my books sort of moved that way. Then I discovered I had 2 stories in me that were historical stories set around World War One, and one was about a conscientious objector, and I wrote a book called If You Go Away, and the second was a book about spare brides, women that found they were without vocation once they were without men. I know, I'm sorry about that sentence too, but that is history. I wrote those 2 books, which took a big chunk of my life emotionally. I was writing a book a year all the way along. I've written 22 books in 22 years. They've all been bestsellers. Many of the last ones have been #1 bestsellers, which is fabulous. But I was still writing a book a year, and producing a book a year, and publishing a book a year. But I was writing these big historical novels. And I just found when I finished them and I'd promoted them and they were out in the world, those little babies, that I couldn't go back to single relationships, romantic relationships. It just didn't feel enough. I had tapped into my inner dark side. And you know, there's something cool about going somewhere, and it's like going to a fun fair and going on the worst scary ride, but knowing you're safe. I would not get into a car that was going to drive illegally and super fast. I would get on a playground ride that was going to drive really fast and scare me. So there are 2 different things. One's a real danger and one's a controlled danger. And interestingly, I think psychological thrillers offer us that fairground attraction, thrill and fear and like, who done it? And my goodness, can you imagine getting into this situation and how dark is this? Without actually putting yourself at any risk. And for some reason, we humans need that. I don't know why, maybe to remind ourselves how good we've got it, because we have. But yeah, I think that for me is the joy of a psychological thriller. I love the twists. I love the turns. So yeah, I love taking my readers on a ride. And some of you will say, oh, I saw that coming. And others will say, I never saw that coming. And both of those responses are phenomenal for me. Now, I must go on because look, you're all sending questions in, and when that's fabulous. Mandy Ann says she reads about 50 books a year, which I am overwhelmed at and super excited. I used to do that. I probably not quite as many now, maybe 30, a good year of 30. And she said she can't wait to start this book. So that's brilliant. Somebody here traveling to Brisbane. So that's going to be fun. Can I just say, that's Joy Bell. What a beautiful name. My middle name was going to be Joy because my mom spilled some sugar at her much scary mother-in-law's house when she was pregnant with me. And in a moment that my Nana, would-be Nana, wasn't scary, she said, oh, spilling sugar, that must be for Joy. And then my mum, when she was delivering me, apparently it was a really complicated, annoyingly long labor. And the very great midwife was also called Joy. So you'd think she'd hear the message. I should have been Joy. I'm not, I'm Adele. I'm not even Joy as a middle name. I would have loved it. Okay. So somebody here is asking, Joy Bell is asking, how many books have I written? So she maybe missed the beginning, which is great. It's fine. You're all busy women. I have written 22 in 22 years. And Jane Tara has asked, in that case, that's so prolific. How do I structure my day? Well, I am a girly swat. Always was at school, always will be. First of all, I need to say I love my job. I think my job is an utter privilege. I'm feeling comfortable when I'm not writing. During promotion time, can I tell you, used to be one day out, you go and sign a few books. 22 years ago, that's what you did. You topped up to your local bookstore, and they were the only ones who cared about you anyway, and you signed that book, and that was it. Promotion for me now is a couple of months of my year, at least 6 weeks in the UK, maybe. And then this time, the book came out first in Australia, came out with you guys last week in Australia, and it comes out in the UK in a couple of weeks. So I would say about 6 weeks between Australia and the UK. And then maybe another month further in the year, I will do in America. And I might go on tours to other countries where my books are translated. I'm translated into over 30 different languages across the globe, which is super exciting. So when I'm promoting, I don't write. And can I tell you, I feel ill. It's like if any of you are super sporty and need to exercise every day, which I'm not quite that, I'm afraid, but I feel like that about writing. I love writing every day. In my perfect world, I write 1,000 to 2,000 words every day, generally in the morning. It's just when I feel most creative. And then in the afternoon, I will I don't know, I'll do social media, I will look at contracts, I will approve covers for foreign editions, I might do short stories for promoting or interviews for promoting, to kind of get them in the bag for around promotion time. So there's plenty to keep me busy. I work 5 days a week. I don't work at weekends. I have a 21-year-old child and he turns 22 this year. So I have had every year I've written a book has been a different year in Conrad's life. And so overall that period of time, I have written with a baby hung on my boob and written one-handed and got that weird cramp in your arms that you will all know if you've ever breastfed. I've written when he was at nursery and I had 2.5 hours a day because by the time I dropped him off at nursery, got home, I was basically turning the car around again or setting off walking again. So, I always say my muse for many years, for the first sort of 12 years of his life, was a really good working mum muse that always appeared when he was at school. Thank you. As he got older, I got a bit more fluid and flexibility, and now he's flown the nest. So I find the discipline is still there. I still want to write every day. In fact, I'm always trying to kind of fill my days now, I guess, because you'll all know, if you're at my stage of life, you'll know that. So can I say hello to Cheryl Ware? We've said hi to Louise Gunn, who says so true about the twists and turns and psychological thrillers. Oh, thank you. She's given me a really big compliment there. She said I did a brilliant explanation. Thanks. Thank you. That's a bit vain. I started reading it out and then thought, how do I not read out a compliment to myself? It's so un-British. I'm mortified. Okay. There's Jen Honey. She says hi. And then she asked me, do I have a favorite character? Well, in this book, Dora is just the out and out heroine. In many of my books, it's pretty balanced. I will have 5 or 6 people that you might be rooting for. You might get cross with some of them at some point, and then you come back to them. But in this book, because I knew I was gambling and I was asking you to come on a journey with me with a sex worker, I know, what a comment. I knew I had to stay with her for quite a long time for you to understand her. And my goodness, she's quite harsh to like at times. I have this process, you might like this. I have this process about writing character. When I start writing a novel, I will interview my character. I will sit down with him or her. And I have a list of between like 50 and 100 questions, and I will ask at least 20 or 30 of them. And the questions obviously cover name, age, gender, sexuality, where they are in the siblings and the family, where they might live geographically, possibly their race if it's relevant. So all that kind of thing will be there. I think that's your bread and butter. There's nothing there really that people think that's what makes us different. It doesn't. That's just the commonality we all have. We all just happen to be a certain thing. Then these are the exciting things about people. Well, I ask my characters, go on, tell me about your first kiss. I say to my characters, go on, tell me about the first room you can remember. And did you feel comfortable in there, or was it terrifying? Tell me about your first friend at school and how you made that friend. Or what birth sign are you? And I ask these questions, and my characters in voice answer for me. And this all goes on in my head, and I will write these answers down, and I find this super helpful. So when I start to plot and when I'm actually writing, I can always refer back to these notes, and I feel super confident about these characters. So that's all marvelous. Dora, when I was interviewing Dora, so again, I keep remembering to, even though I keep remembering to hold up the book, I've yet to remember which side this book is going to be held up on. So here we go. Here's the book, Dora. And I think she kind of looks like this. So Dora, one of my questions I asked her quite early on in my interview was like, I'm going to swear soon. So anyone's got any children, just take them out of the room, cover their ears. If swearing offends you, cover your own ears. But I said to Dora, you know, what's the moment you're most ashamed of? And she just said, fuck off, I'm not telling you. Rude. But it was a great moment for me because I realized that was Dora speaking, because that's not really how I would speak to someone. And I thought, yeah, that is so Dora. She is ashamed of things, but she isn't ready to tell me, even though I'm creating her. And then when you come on this journey with Dora and you read her book, she does eventually tell you what she's most ashamed of. And equally, she tells you what she's most proud of. And that's how you get to the humanity of her. But it takes some time. And I think that's interesting. So yeah, that's why she's my favorite character. So Fiona Loader says, I'm a musician and I feel the same way as you do. If I don't practice every day, yeah, I'm certain. And can I say, huge and amazing respect. Because people say to me, you know, how do you write a book? Where do the ideas come from? And I quite often liken it to music. And I say, how do people compose music? Because I have no idea. I don't understand that at all. And I don't understand how people read music. And I am so in awe of it. And it's beautiful. And I enjoy music from pop to classical. I love it. But I just have such great respect. So thank you, Fiona, for sharing that about you. Helen Simic says hello, and she said she can't wait to read my new book. And she also asked me, if I wasn't an author, what would I be? Which is a great question. I always wanted to be an author. I wanted to be an author since a little girl. A librarian originally suggested it to me because she noted how often I was in the library. And I am eternally grateful to her for putting that suggestion in my head. I don't necessarily know if I would have thought about it or when I would have thought about it, because I came from a small town in the northeast of England, which is away from all, in those days, was away from all the action. And I don't know if I would have had that ambition or it would have ever crossed my mind. So thank you, amazing librarian. Librarians are amazing. If I wasn't a writer, I mean, I have had lots of ideas over my lifetime, and I wanted to be a florist at one point or a window dresser, and I've managed to make those careers come alive for me through my characters. Can I say I wouldn't want to be a sex worker? That's not up there. I think, want to be a photographer, which I guess is another way of capturing other people's lives, souls, worlds, which is why I write. I write to connect. It's quite weird because writing is pretty insular, and I personally often talk about how lonely it is. You know, you have to spend hours and hours and hours on your own. And often I'm observing people instead of being part of their lives. I have to watch them and work out what they are telling me, what they're not telling me. Why are they telling me this? Why are they not telling me this? Real people as well as my characters. So I am on the outside. So I would say in many ways my career is quite lonely, but in some ways it's also the career that reaches out to so many people. My books in the UK editions have been read, that we know of, have been sold in over 4 million copies. So I'm guessing been read in twice as many as that, because we all loan books and borrow books, and that's a great thing. So I have loads of friends and I have loads of connections, and I hope, reached people and they've read something I've written and said, yeah, I feel like that. I understand that. I understand that woman. I feel slightly better knowing that there is that connection. I think it's a nice thing to put out in the world. So that's why I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to send all these little kind of spider tingly sensors out to other people and say, do you feel like this? Is this part of your experience of being alive? And I think that works. People contact me all the time through my Instagram, through my Facebook, and through Twitter. And please do. It's only me. I haven't got a PA. Probably should have. The chaos I live in, but I haven't, because I really enjoy actually talking to my readers, and because it's a huge honor you pay me by spending hours reading my book. So I think mutual respect. I want to talk to you. I want to hear what you think about my book. I want to hear about what you think of other books. That's obviously fantastic for me as a reader. So yeah, I would be a photographer because I think there would be some similarities. Whilst I'm behind my laptop, I could be behind a camera, but I would also be reaching out with the image I had, the way you would reach out with the book you have produced, and say, is this your understanding of the world too? So how much, last question. I think we're already up. A half an hour has flown by. I hope you feel it's flown by. I've loved every minute. I will take one more question. And then after this question, if you still are desperate to speak to me, as I say, come and find me on the social media. I would love to talk to you all. One more question from Sharon Hill. How much input do I have of my covers and titles? A lot, because I have the world's best publishers. It's just the fact. It's the truth. I'm published by HQ HarperCollins, and they're fantastic. They're a phenomenal team in the UK, and they're phenomenal teams across the globe. And yeah, my publisher here in the UK is usually the person who generates the first cover and the first titles, and that's very much a collaborative process. I sometimes have a title all the way along, and I'm just like, this is my title. And she'll say to me, that is it. And other times she'll go, absolutely, it is. You're completely correct. And other times I'll come to her and go, here's the book. Still don't know what it's called. And I will literally hand it over to her and say, can you come up with something? And then she will go to the wider team, the marketing and the PR, and maybe even sales, and certainly discuss titles. And you know, sales are very involved with covers as well. We want the outlets that sell my books, the independent bookshops, the big supermarkets, the chains. We want those guys to feel comfortable with the package, the cover, and to say, yeah, okay, I can see that in my shop. I understand how I would be giving that to my readers. Everybody's in this process as a collaborative process, and everybody wants the best for me, and I'm aware of that. I'm really proud of this cover. I think it's possibly my favorite cover ever, which I would like to be the case, because I think, and I feel uncomfortable saying this because it feels like a bit of a betrayal to my previous books, but I think this might be my favorite ever book. I'd love you to read it and hear if it's your favorite book of mine. I'd also love to hear what your favorite ever books are. So please stay in touch. That's probably me. I'm wrapping up. I thank you for your time. Go and have a glass of wine. My day's just starting. I'm going to do some TV filming now here in the UK. But you can have a glass of wine, pick up a good book, and put your feet up. Good luck to you. So thank you for joining. It's been a joy.